Why don't you fear us, human? Commander Vrex Talorn adjusted his exoskeleton armor, admiring how the polished obsidian plates caught the light of Earth's pathetic yellow sun. He snorted through his 4 nasal cavities, a gesture that on his homeworld of Nexus Prime would indicate supreme confidence bordering on arrogance. Well, not bordering. Smack dab in the middle of arrogance territory with a vacation home and everything. Status report, he barked to his elite Conquest squad, assembled on the bridge of the dreadnought Inevitable. The name wasn't subtle, but subtlety wasn't exactly their strong suit. When you've conquered 17 planetary systems, you earn the right to be as on the nose as you want. Science Officer Nalara Zent looked up from her holographic display, her silver eyes blinking in their distinctive vertical pattern. Reconnaissance complete, Commander. These humans are, frankly, laughable. Their strongest specimens can barely lift 300 pounds, they have no natural armor, no claws, and their teeth. She made a gurgling sound that translated roughly to a derisive chuckle. They could barely puncture fruit with those pathetic calcium nubs. Weapons assessment? Vrex prompted, already knowing the answer but wanting to hear it anyway. He loved good news, especially when delivered in multiple confirmations. Krav Muldoon, weapons specialist, and the squad's resident destruction enthusiast, stepped forward. His massive frame, nearly 9 feet of pure muscle, metal, and malice practically quivered with anticipation. Their most advanced weapons rely on chemical propellants and basic fission. It's like they're asking to be conquered. We haven't seen technology this primitive since the Zygonian outpost, and those were literal insectoids. Vrex paced the command deck, his footsteps leaving slight indentations in the metallic floor. Communications? Lieutenant Pax Velcor, the smallest of the group but with a voice that could carry across stellar distances, gave a dismissive wave of her 6-fingered hand. They still use radio waves, Commander. Radio waves. And their encryption? My birthing offspring could break it, and she's still in her larval stage. A satisfied rumble vibrated through Vrex's chest cavity as he gazed at the blue-green planet displayed on the main view screen. Such a pretty little world, ripe for the taking. The Nexus Empire would be pleased. This would be his easiest conquest yet. Prepare the terror protocols, he commanded, watching his crew snap to attention. The Talorn method has never failed. First, we demonstrate our superior technology. Then, we showcase our physical dominance. And finally, he paused, savoring the moment. We break their will to resist. Vrex ran a clawed hand over his cranial ridges, feeling the pride of a job not yet done but certainly in the bag. Their fearsome reputation preceded them across 3 galaxies. Species far more advanced than these humans had surrendered at the mere mention of the Inevitable's approach. Commander, Nylara interjected, should we broadcast our ultimatum across their global communications network? Standard procedure would. No, Vrex cut her off, a new idea forming. Let's make this personal. Find me a small population center, somewhere remote but accessible. I want to see the fear in their eyes when they first behold us. He pulled his lips back in what passed for a smile among his species, revealing 3 rows of serrated teeth. It's so much more satisfying that way. The crew exchanged knowing glances. The commander's penchant for dramatic first contacts was legendary, if somewhat time-consuming. But who were they to argue with success? Planet Earth, Vrex murmured, already imagining the accolades this easy conquest would bring. Prepare to be afraid. Very, very afraid. The remote town of Pine Creek, population 2,457, was about to make galactic history. Not that any of its residents knew this as they went about their Tuesday evening routines. The local diner, Sunny's Supper Spot, had just hit its after-dinner lull. A perfect setting for what Commander Vrex Talorn considered to be his artistic masterpiece, first contact done right. Atmospheric insertion complete, Lieutenant Pax announced from the cloaked ship, hovering 50 meters above the town's central parking lot. Ready to deploy the terror team on your command. Vrex flared his shoulder spines to their full, Impressive width. Remember the choreography. Smoke generators first, then the sonic disruptors at exactly 20% we want to disorient, not liquefy their internal organs yet. He paused, savoring the moment. Then the landing platform descends with the light array. And absolutely no smiling. We're harbingers of doom, not contestants in a beauty pageant. Krav Muldoon grunted as he checked his plasma rifle for the 14th time. The weapon could level a small building, but tonight it was merely a prop. A very deadly, very functional prop. Seems like a lot of work when we could just vaporize their military installations and be done with it. That's why you're the weapons specialist and I'm the commander, Vrex replied with exaggerated patience. Conquest is an art form. Now places everyone. At his signal, jets of dense, purple-tinged smoke poured from hidden vents, swirling dramatically across the parking lot and setting off several car alarms. The cacophony was joined by a low-frequency hum that rattled windows and set neighborhood dogs howling. Perfect, Vrex purred, watching through the view screen as confused humans began to gather. Lower the platform. With theatrical slowness, a circular section of what appeared to be empty air began to glow with pulsating crimson light. The landing platform descended, revealing 3 imposing figures positioned in what Vrex considered the most intimidating formation possible, himself at center, arms crossed over his massive chest, with Science Officer Nalara to his left, her silver eyes glinting menacingly. And the hulking Krav Muldoon to his right, plasma rifle at the ready. As the platform touched down, Vrex activated his armor's thermal boosters, causing waves of heat to distort the air around him, a nice touch that usually sent primitive species cowering. He scanned the gathered humans, noting with satisfaction their wide eyes and open mouths. Select the target, he murmured to Nalara through their internal comms, preferably female, smaller stature, maximum terror potential. Nylara's silver eyes darted across the crowd. There, by the illuminated food establishment sign, red outer garments, dark cranial filaments, appears to be returning from a nutrition acquisition. The human woman in question was indeed carrying a takeout bag from Sunny's, standing at the edge of the growing crowd with a curious expression. Perfect. Vrex strode forward, his footsteps deliberately heavy, creating small impact tremors in the asphalt. The crowd parted before him, not quite in terror, but close enough. He stopped 3 meters from the selected human, drew himself up to his full height of 8 feet, and activated his vocal amplifier. Human, he boomed, the sound reverberating across the parking lot. Tremble before the might of the Nexus Empire. Your world is claimed. Your species will submit. I am Commander Vrex Talorn, and your existence as you know it is over. For dramatic emphasis, Krav fired his plasma rifle into the sky, creating a blinding purple streak that exploded in a shower of crackling energy. Then they waited for the screaming to begin. The human woman, later identified as Eleanor Ellie Blackwood, assistant manager at the local credit union, tilted her head slightly. She blinked once, twice. Then she said, "Huh. Neat special effects. Is this for the town's bicentennial celebration?" Council didn't mention anything at the last meeting. Vrex's intimidation stance faltered. "No, you misunderstand. We are conquerors from beyond your star system. Your primitive weapons cannot harm us. Your civilization will be subjugated." Ellie nodded thoughtfully, then reached into her takeout bag. "You guys want some onion rings? They're probably still warm." Behind Vrex, Nalara made a strangled sound of confusion. Krav raised his plasma rifle slightly, clearly uncertain whether to fire another demonstration shot. "We do not require your fried vegetation." Vrex tried again, injecting what he considered a blood-curdling growl into his voice. "We require your total submission." From the crowd, a teenager with bright blue hair called out, "Dude, your costumes are sick. Are you guys doing a flash mob or something?" Silence. Vrex roared, his patience evaporating faster than water on a neutron star. Hear us. Ellie popped an onion ring into her mouth, chewing thoughtfully. You know, the community theater did Alien, the musical, last spring. Your prosthetics are way better, though. Vrex felt something unfamiliar creeping through his nervous system. It took him a moment to identify it as uncertainty. This was not how first contacts were supposed to go. Not at all. We are not wearing prosthetics, he managed finally, his amplified voice sounding less commanding and more petulant, even to his own hearing appendages. We are truly alien beings. Cool, Ellie replied with a casual shrug that would haunt Vrex's sleep cycle for weeks to come. Welcome to Pine Creek. Chamber of Commerce is closed now, but they open at 9 if you need tourist information. Replay it again, Commander Vrex demanded, his claws digging into the armrests of his command chair hard enough to leave marks. The bridge of the inevitable had never felt so tense, the air thick with an emotion rarely experienced by the Conquest squad: embarrassment. The holographic display flickered, once again showing Ellie Blackwood's utterly unimpressed face as she offered them fried food. The recording ended with Vrex and his team awkwardly retreating back to their ship while humans took pictures with their primitive communication devices. I don't understand, Nylara muttered, running a diagnostic on her fear pheromone emitters for the third time. All readings indicate the biological responses should have been terror, panic, and submission. Instead, they wanted selfies. She pronounced the unfamiliar word like it was a disease. Krav Muldoon paced the bridge, his massive frame practically vibrating with agitation. Let me just vaporize their defensive headquarters. One demonstration of real power and they'll... No. Vrex snapped, then regained his composure. No, we are following protocol. The Nexus Empire doesn't just obliterate resistance, we break it psychologically. It's more efficient. He wouldn't admit that his pride was wounded, that a small-town human had made him feel foolish for the first time in his illustrious career. Lieutenant Pax coughed delicately. If I may, Commander, our reconnaissance might have been incomplete. The humans' entertainment transmissions suggest they regularly consume media depicting alien invasions. Perhaps they thought we were, as they say, cosplaying? Vrex hissed through his teeth, a sound like steam escaping a pressure valve. Then we must make it abundantly clear that we are not engaging in costume play. Nylara, prepare the Class 2 Frighteners. Nylara's vertical eyelids blinked rapidly in surprise. The Class 2s? Those are reserved for militaristic species with at least interplanetary travel capabilities. I don't care. Bring everything. The molecular destabilizer, the chronometric disruptor. The Vrex paused dramatically, the specimen harvester. A hushed silence fell over the bridge. The specimen harvester was a particularly nasty piece of equipment designed to extract and preserve organs while the subject remained conscious. It was mostly for show. The Nexus Empire had evolved beyond such crude research methods centuries ago, but its psychological impact was undeniable. Now, Vrex continued, a manic gleam in his 4 eyes. Our intelligence indicates that this Ellie works at a primitive currency exchange facility called Pine Creek Credit Union. We will confront her there and... Actually, Commander, Pax interrupted, checking her data pad. It appears she has taken a temporary position at the local nutrition dispensary to cover staff shortages. A place called Sunny's Supper Spot. Fine, Vrex growled. Even better. Public location, multiple witnesses, maximum impact. Prepare for deployment at dawn. Dawn on Earth, it turned out, was offensively cheerful. Sunlight glinted off the chrome fixtures of Sunny's diner as Vrex, Nylara, and Krav materialized just outside the entrance, their advanced weaponry and terror devices humming with power. This time there was no smoke or theatrical entrance. Vrex had decided on the direct approach. They strode through the door, causing the little bell above to jingle in an inappropriately cheerful manner. The breakfast crowd turned to stare, not in terror, but with mild interest that quickly turned to recognition. Hey, it's the alien cosplay guys, called out a man in a plaid shirt, raising his coffee mug in salute. Great commitment to the bit, showing up in full costume for breakfast. Vrex ignored him, scanning the establishment until he spotted Ellie behind the counter, pouring coffee for an elderly couple. She looked up, saw them, and smiled. Morning space visitors, she called out, entirely too chipper. Just grab any open booth. I'll be with you in a sec. Vrex marched to the counter, his footsteps leaving small indentations in the linoleum. He slammed a clawed hand down, cracking the formica surface. The elderly couple scooted their stools a few inches away but continued eating their pancakes. We are not visitors, Vrex snarled, his voice low and menacing. We are your conquerors. Aha, Ellie responded, grabbing a coffee pot. We have a space-themed special today, actually. The flying saucer slam. 3 pancakes with eggs and your choice of cosmic hash browns or grits from the 5th dimension. Behind Vrex, Nalara activated the molecular destabilizer with a theatrical flourish. The device emitted an ominous purple glow and caused all metallic objects in the vicinity to vibrate slightly. A fork fell off a nearby table. Oh, neat trick, said a woman in scrubs, clearly on her way to work. Is that a magnetic thing? Nalara shut off the device with a frustrated hiss. Krav decided it was his turn. The massive weapons specialist stepped forward, looming over Ellie. He extended his secondary arms, a feature they'd kept concealed during the first encounter for maximum shock value, and growled deep in his chest cavity. The sound made the glassware rattle. Fear me, human female, he roared, bringing his face inches from Ellie's. Ellie looked him up and down, then reached out and patted one of his secondary arms. You know, the extra arms are a nice touch, very practical. Do you mind lifting this coffee urn for me? It's heavy, and I'm not supposed to strain my back. A child at a nearby booth giggled and pointed. Mommy, the alien has 4 arms like Goro from Mortal Kombat. Krav's fearsome expression collapsed into confusion as he automatically took the coffee urn Ellie handed him. He stood there, holding it awkwardly, looking to Vrex for guidance. Vrex felt a headache building behind his 4 eyes. This was going even worse than the first attempt. We have technology that could melt this structure to slag, he tried, desperation creeping into his voice. We could harvest your organs while you still live. Does this not frighten you? Ellie grabbed her order pad. Not particularly. Now, are you folks actually ordering breakfast, or is this just another intimidation attempt? Because I've got tables to serve either way. From across the diner, a teenager called out, "Do the aliens get the senior discount?" The entire restaurant erupted in laughter. Back on the inevitable, an emergency council of war was in progress. The Conquest squad sat around the tactical table, images of smiling, unafraid humans floating above them like mocking ghosts. This is unprecedented, Commander Vrex muttered, his claws drumming an agitated rhythm on the table. 2 attempts. 2 failures. My perfect record tarnished by a female human who offered us breakfast specials. Perhaps Nalara ventured carefully. We need to reconsider our approach. Something about these humans is different. I propose a more thorough study before our next attempt. Vrex's head snapped up. What exactly are you suggesting? Covert observation. Deep cultural analysis. We've been relying on physical data strength measurements, weapons capability, technological advancement. But psychology is equally important in conquest strategy. Nalara brought up a series of images on the main display. I've already begun preliminary research into their entertainment media. It's confusing. The display showed clips of humans in darkened rooms, watching other humans being stalked and murdered by various creatures. The observers were screaming, clutching each other, covering their eyes yet smiling. They deliberately exposed themselves to stimuli designed to trigger fear responses, Nalara explained, her scientific detachment barely masking her bewilderment. They call it horror entertainment. They pay currency for this experience. Lieutenant Pax leaned forward, fascinated despite herself. So they practice being afraid? It gets stranger, Nylara continued, switching the display to show humans strapped into metal contraptions that hurled them through the air at high speeds. These are called roller coasters. The humans are secured inside, then subjected to forces that simulate near-death experiences. Listen to their vocalizations. The room filled with the sound of human screams, followed by laughter and demands to do it again. And these, she continued, now showing humans leaping from great heights with only thin cords attached to their ankles, are engaging in extreme sports. Activities with high fatality potential, performed for recreation. Krav Muldoon's eyes widened. They're desensitizing themselves to fear stimuli. It's a species-wide psychological training program. Not exactly, Nylara corrected. My analysis suggests they actually enjoy the neurochemical responses associated with fear. They seek it out. For fun. The room fell silent as this information sank in. There's more, Nylara said quietly, bringing up news footage of climate disasters, nuclear weapons tests, and pandemic reports. These humans live constantly in the shadow of self-created extinction events. Their own weapons could destroy their planet several times over. Their industrial activities are altering their climate in potentially catastrophic ways. They regularly face disease outbreaks that could wipe out significant portions of their population. And yet they continue their daily activities, Vrex said slowly, a new understanding dawning. Getting coffee, making jokes, offering breakfast to invaders. Precisely, Nylara nodded. My hypothesis is that humans have developed psychological adaptations to constant existential threat. They've normalized apocalyptic thinking to such a degree that our intimidation tactics register as entertainment. Vrex stood abruptly, pacing the bridge with renewed energy. This changes nothing. I refuse to be defeated by a species that treats planetary conquest as some sort of amusement park attraction. His 4 eyes narrowed with determination. This Ellie Blackwood, she is the key. If we can make her fear us, the others will follow. Krav exchanged concerned glances with Nylara. Commander, perhaps we should reconsider. No. Vrex slammed his fist down, denting the metallic table. I want everything we have on this human. Her dwelling location, her social connections, her personal fears. If standard intimidation won't work, we'll need to get creative. Nylara began compiling the data, but couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The more she learned about humans, the more she wondered if they were making a terrible mistake. Any species that could laugh in the face of both cosmic horror movies and actual cosmic horrors was not to be underestimated. Meanwhile, Vrex stared obsessively at the image of Ellie Blackwood, her casual smile now feeling less like indifference and more like a challenge. I will make you fear me, he whispered to the projection, whatever it takes. The sun was setting over Pine Creek when Eleanor Blackwood stepped out the back door of Sunny's after her shift, untying her apron with a weary sigh. It had been a long day of pancake flipping and coffee refills. As she tossed the apron over her shoulder and reached for her car keys, a shadow detached itself from the dumpster enclosure. We need to talk, Commander Vrex said, stepping into the amber light of the setting sun. He was alone this time, no backup, no fancy weapons, no theatrical entrance. Just an 8-foot alien commander with 4 eyes and rapidly dwindling patience. Ellie didn't even flinch. You know, most people make appointments, or at least call ahead. We've been monitoring your communications device. It seems inefficient. 47% of your incoming alerts are from something called TikTok. Yeah, well, Ellie shrugged, leaning against the wall. That sounds about right. So, what's up? More threats? Gonna show me another fancy light show? Or are you finally here to try the pie? Wednesday is banana cream day. Vrex's shoulder spines drooped slightly. He looked almost defeated. I have conquered 17 planetary systems. Species with technology far superior to yours have trembled at the mere mention of my name. I have a trophy room filled with the ceremonial surrender flags of civilizations you cannot even pronounce. Neat, Ellie replied, checking her watch. Sorry, but I've got a thing at 7, so if we could speed this. Why? Vrex suddenly exploded, his voice echoing off the brick wall of the diner. Why don't you fear us, human? What is wrong with you people? The question hung in the air between them. For the first time, Ellie seemed to really look at him, taking in the genuine confusion and frustration radiating from the alien commander. She said finally. You're actually serious about this whole invasion thing, aren't you? Of course I'm serious. Vrex sputtered, momentarily shocked out of his anger. We're the most feared Conquest squad in 3 galaxies. We have technology that could reduce your civilization to atoms. We can manipulate your molecular structure, alter your perception of time, extract your organs while you're still conscious. And you offered us onion rings. From the shadows behind the dumpster, Nalara and Krav emerged, having been there the whole time. Krav had his plasma rifle trained on Ellie, while Nalara held a datapad, recording the interaction. Commander, Nalara murmured, her bio readings are finally showing elevated stress markers. We might be making progress. Ellie glanced at the weapon, then back to Vrex. For a moment, just a moment, she seemed to take them seriously. Then she shook her head and laughed. Actually laughed. What? Look, I get it now. You really are aliens, and you really did come here to conquer Earth or whatever. But seriously, she gestured vaguely toward the sky. Get in line. The 3 aliens exchanged confused glances. Explain, Vrex demanded, his voice now more curious than commanding. Ellie sighed, looking at her watch again. Fine. You want to know why I'm not afraid of you? Why none of us are particularly impressed by your intimidation tactics? The alien team leaned forward almost imperceptibly, their entire mission now hinging on her answer. Ellie pushed herself away from the wall, suddenly looking tired in a way that had nothing to do with her shift at the diner. She ran a hand through her hair and fixed Vrex with a stare that made him feel, for the first time since landing on Earth, like he was being truly seen. Look, no offense to your whole Conquest operation, but humanity's got a pretty complicated relationship with fear, she began, her voice matter of fact. We've spent our entire existence being terrified of absolutely everything. And I do mean everything. She counted off on her fingers. Predators that could tear us apart? Check. Natural disasters that could wipe out entire cities? Yep. Microscopic organisms that could kill millions? Got those too. Other humans with better weapons? A constant threat throughout history. Vrex felt a strange sensation in his abdomen, something akin to the first twinge of doubt. But here's the thing, Ellie continued, leaning forward slightly. We never had the physical advantages. No claws, no armor, no venom, nothing. So we had to get creative. And mean. Mostly mean. She gestured toward Krav's plasma rifle. Nice weapon. We've got nukes that could turn the planet into glass. We built them ourselves, then pointed them at each other. For decades. Still do. Nylara's datapad began pinging with readings. Hey, Commander, her vital signs indicate complete truthfulness. She's not bluffing. You think your technology is impressive? Ellie went on, warming to her subject. We went from our first powered flight to landing on our moon in 66 years. From discovering atomic structure to splitting the atom in less than 50. You know what most technological advancements on Earth were designed for, originally? Killing each other more efficiently. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. And that's just what we do to ourselves. You should see what we do to species we consider threats, or resources, or sometimes just because they're in our way. Vrex found himself taking an involuntary step backward, But our reconnaissance shows your species is physically inferior, weak, vulnerable. Oh, we absolutely are, Ellie agreed cheerfully. Individually, we're nothing special. But we're stubborn. Really, really stubborn. Did your research show you how many times we've nearly gone extinct? How many mass extinctions we've survived as a species? The last one killed off something like 75% of all life on Earth. We crawled through that evolutionary bottleneck and came out the other side. She tapped her temple. It does something to a species' collective psyche, you know? Makes us a little unhinged. Krav lowered his weapon slightly, a gesture of uncertainty that Vrex had never seen from the weapons specialist before. The average human on this planet. Ellie continued conversationally, lives with the knowledge that we could all die tomorrow from climate collapse, nuclear war, supervolcanoes, asteroids, pandemics. AI gone rogue, take your pick. We make movies about all of these scenarios and watch them for fun while eating popcorn. She stepped closer to Vrex, utterly fearless. So when some aliens show up with fancy lights and scary voices, it's honestly just not that impressive on our fear scale. No offense. Vrex found his voice at last. But if you recognized us as a genuine threat, why not alert your planetary defenses? Your military? Ellie shrugged. Would you call animal control every time you saw a stray puppy? We figured if you were actually dangerous, you'd have done something dangerous by now. The casual dismissal of their threat potential hit Vrex like a physical blow. But it was her next words that truly sent a chill through his exoskeleton. Besides, she said with a small smile, if we really thought you were here to harm us, this conversation would be happening very differently. You wouldn't be talking to a diner waitress in a parking lot. You'd be in a government facility somewhere, being taken apart to see how you work. The silence that followed was deafening. Nylara's data pad slipped from her fingers, clattering on the pavement. You know, Ellie continued, her tone softening, it doesn't have to be this way. Conquest is so outdated. Why not try peaceful contact instead? Trade, cultural exchange, that sort of thing? We've got a lot we could learn from each other. She extended her hand, a simple, harmless human gesture that somehow felt more threatening than any weapon Vrex had ever faced. What do you say? Friends instead of conquerors and conquered. Vrex stared at the outstretched hand, his 4 eyes wide with the sudden, terrible understanding of what they had stumbled upon. Not a helpless, primitive species ripe for conquest, but something far more dangerous, a predator species that had turned its evolutionary fear responses into curiosity, its survival instincts into technological innovation, and its capacity for violence into a background assumption so normalized that they didn't even notice it anymore. And they had just suggested friendship, as if that were an option after threatening them with conquest. The realization hit him like a plasma blast to the chest. They weren't being dismissive of the Nexus Empire's threats. They were being merciful. The retreat to the inevitable wasn't so much a tactical withdrawal as it was a barely disguised panic. Vrex didn't even bother with the proper teleportation protocols, simply jabbing the emergency recall on his wrist device while backing away from Eleanor Blackwood's outstretched hand as if it were a loaded weapon. Which, he now understood, it effectively was. Seconds later, the Conquest squad materialized on the bridge in disarray, Krav nearly falling over Lieutenant Pax, who had been monitoring their vital signs with growing concern. Prepare for immediate departure, Vrex ordered, his voice tight. Maximum acceleration once we clear the atmosphere. Pax blinked in confusion. Commander? The Conquest protocol requires at least 3 intimidation attempts before. New protocol, Vrex snapped, dropping heavily into his command chair. It's called not getting dissected by seemingly friendly predator species. Execute departure sequence. As the ship's engines roared to life, Nylara approached Vrex's chair, her data pad clutched tightly against her chest. Commander, I've prepared the initial report for Nexus Command, she said quietly. I've recommended Earth be classified as approach with extreme caution, pending further analysis from a safe distance. I've also suggested a full review of our species classification protocols. We clearly missed significant factors. Vrex nodded grimly, watching through the view screen as Earth grew smaller below them. Add a personal note from me, he said. Strange, seemingly primitive species may have reached apex predator status precisely because they lack obvious defensive capabilities. The absence of fear may indicate not ignorance of danger, but familiarity with it. As the inevitable broke orbit, the ship's communication array picked up a final transmission from Pine Creek. Vrex hesitated, then signaled for it to be played. Eleanor Blackwood's voice filled the bridge, somehow cheerful even through the static. Hey, space guys. If you change your minds about the whole Conquest thing, come back for coffee sometime. Tuesday is pie night. Bring friends. The message ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. They're inviting us back, Krav muttered incredulously. After we threatened their planet. No, Vrex said slowly, a new and far more disturbing realization dawning. That's what makes them truly terrifying. They're not only unafraid of us, they're friendly. A species with their capacity for violence and destruction, their adaptability, their ability to normalize existential threats, and they default to offering pie. He shuddered, his exoskeleton plates rattling slightly. Can you imagine what they might be like if they were actually hostile? If we had managed to make them afraid? The inevitable accelerated to light speed, leaving the unassuming blue planet behind. Vrex stared out at the stars, suddenly finding the vast emptiness of space far more comforting than the single world they were fleeing. Set course for Nexus Prime, he ordered quietly. And begin research into appropriate friendship gifts. Just in case. Because deep in his four-chambered heart, Commander Vrex Talorn, terror of 3 galaxies, knew an uncomfortable truth. Sooner or later, humanity would reach the stars. And when they did, it would be far better to be counted among their friends than their enemies. Especially on Pie Night,